First of all, I'd like to apologize for not being at the venue in person. It would have been a great experience. And then I'd like to thank the committee for organizing the workshop. It's been a fantastic learning experience. Now, the presentation here is brought to you by myself and my PhD supervisors, Sammy from Macquarie University and Ben from Queen's University, Belfast. So we know that the workshop mesh is a benchmark because it's designed for a variety of prediction methods. But I have decided to use only SS spalomeres-based DDS for my own work. So that opens up the opportunity for me to tailor my grid for my own purpose. So in this presentation, you will see the comparison of prediction results between case 2A and case 2B between the two grids. So one of the meshing tools which is easily accessible to me is SnappyHex. It's free and it works in parallel, so it's great for me. The supercomputing resource that I have used is Gaudi, located in Canberra. The CPU hours for my own mesh is 17K, whereas for the workshop mesh is 31K. This is because my mesh has significantly less volume elements, but it's tailored for one particular prediction method. So the cell count in my own mesh is 90 mil. The number of shell elements isn't that different. Most of the difference comes in the number of prism layers and the placement of the spatial refinement volume. So I have decided to use 3 prism layers. So this is how I've worked through the whole process. So I've picked a grand model, which is spalomeres, and I generated multiple meshes with different first layer height, different growth rate, until I get a average Y plus across the car surface that I'm happy with. So at 0.9 mil, I end up with a range of Y plus between 44 and 55, and that gives me an average of about 50. I'm happy with it. And then I calculate with a growth rate, what the max, the Y plus which the total prism layers extend to, and in this case is 200. Now, flow around the vehicle is complex and it's local, so it's difficult to predict what the extent of the Y plus should be to correctly capture the flow boundary layer. But I've decided to use 200 here. And lastly, a distinctive difference between my mesh and the workshop mesh is my geometry is actually from the previous workshop. So the contact package is closed. And some of the solver settings here, they're pretty standard. So I've used a simplex mode. The flow is incompressible. Time step is 1 × 10⁻⁴. Averaging window is 1 second, between 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, and some of the boundary conditions for the turbulence modeling. So because in SADDS, the turbulent boundary layer, which is generated at the stagnation point of the car, all the way until it's separated, is discretized by linear upwind. So I just have to have a appropriate method or the configuration which is suitable for RANs, and this is why I've sort of removed some of the volume refinements before the turbulent flow separation, and I've extended the spatial refinement further downstream. I think the reason why it looks to me that the extended refinement on the ground to the side is probably for a different configuration of the car, or it could be for a different inflow condition. So the workshop mesh is more general, but I don't have any yaw angles, and I don't have any different configurations. Well, there is one difference in configuration, which is case 2B, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to stick with a under my own prediction method, a shorter refinement either side, just to save some cells. Okay, so let's look at on this slice, we have the time series from both meshes for both cases. So the averaging window is between 1.5 and 2.5 seconds. So on the left, you've got case 2A. The calculated drag coefficient for the in-house mesh is 0.273, which is larger than the experimental measurement. So is the workshop grid as well. But the interesting thing is you can see a difference in the delta CD between case 2A and case 2B. And if you look further, you can see that's because the case 2B, the two meshes return very similar predictions on case 2B. It's only one drag count, so we're going to not worry too much about it. Most of the difference, which is 4 drag counts, is on case 2A. And that's why we have this difference in delta CD between two cases. So also the MinCalc returns the recommendation from MinCalc is I could start averaging just before 1.5 seconds. And that gives me a 95% confidence interval of 5 drag counts. I think I was extremely lucky to be like on the edge of that confidence level. So if we go to the next slide, this is the upper body centerline pressure coefficient for case 2A by the two grids. You can see I can't say which one's definitely better because the in-house mesh has a point which lies directly on the experiment, but for the downstream, it sort of deviates further from the experiment. Also, for the rest of the presentation, I've decided to not dig into too much details with the results that I have submitted because Burkhardt has already done a great job. So let's not repeat ourselves here. So what I'm going to do is talk about the stuff which I have not submitted. So first of all, let's take a slice in the computation domain through the symmetry plane. It's not exactly a symmetry plane because the underbody is not symmetrical. And then we look at vorticity magnitude, time average mean velocity magnitude, and total pressure coefficient. You can see the two grids return very similar flow fields visually in case 2A, even though there's a difference of 4 drag counts. So perhaps the difference is not really in the symmetry plane. Let's see if that's true. So trying to go to the next slide. This is the pressure coefficient on the front of the vehicle. You can see the pressure coefficient contour is fairly symmetrical left and right, even though the underbody is not symmetrical. And then we look at the back of the car. You can now see some differences. So the CP contour is not symmetrical because the underbody is not. But then you start seeing some 3D effects. It almost looks like the downwash is different on case 2A between two grids. And then we dig into this a bit further. Trying to go to the next slide. What's going on? Okay. So what I've done here is I calculated the time average total pressure, convert it to coefficients, and then look at the total pressure coefficient of 1. That should give me a rough indication of the shape of flow separation. Now you can see on the committee mesh, there's the 3D effect along the center line it's more obvious. You do have the same 3D effect on my in-house grid, but it's not as severe. So I suppose it almost looks like that 3D effect is the result of flow separation from the stagnation point to the engine cover, and probably the dip into the windshield wiper, where it should be located. And then if you look further, you can see the shape of the separation between the mirror and the door handle is a bit wider in the in-house mesh. Also, the wake by the mirror is a bit taller in the in-house mesh, and that probably, well, on the in-house mesh definitely has a wider wake, and that probably is why it returns 4 more drag counts. And then if you look at it from the back, you can also see the downwash has different width, and the in this case, the in-house mesh has a wider downwash. And then we look at it further, you can see the in-house mesh definitely has a taller wake, and the separation of the front wheel is different. And I think that's very likely due to the fact that my contact patch is closed. And let's have a look if that's true. So if we take a slice at x equals 0, which is not actually through the center wheel, because the center wheel is located at x equals 7 mil, I believe, but it's close enough. And you can see that the by the way, you're looking at total pressure coefficient. So you can see that the wake, well, not the wake, the separation around the front wheel is different and is wider on either side when the contact patch is closed. And this is reasonable because now you have a wider area, a larger area carrying the what's that called? The stagnation pressure, because the wheels are not rotating, ground's not moving, so it's just inlet total pressure at the contact patch, and that creates a larger separation. And I believe this is a reasonable explanation. And then we look at something a bit closer onto the region at the car's vehicle surface. So you're looking at time average oil flow created by mean wall shear stress, and so you can see that even on the front of the car, which is very close to the stagnation point, and you would think this is not so much affected by the asymmetric underbody or anything downstream because it's close to a station point. You're at the stagnation pressure. The shear stress is different, but only for a region which is just in the middle. It's at the starting bit of the engine cover. And then you can see that has also created a subtle difference on the wall shear stress on the front-facing window close to the roof. Everything else looks pretty similar, and I would say it's safe to say that the shear stress distribution is fairly symmetrical on this plane. And I'll go to the next slide. This is just the rear view. So I believe what the arrow, so the arrows, the thing that the arrow is pointing at, I believe that's the reattachment location of the separated wake. It's not symmetrical because the underbody is not symmetrical, but it almost looks like the downwash is pushing that reattachment location further down towards the ground on the in-house mesh. So that reattachment point is a bit lower. If you look a bit closer, you can see the difference in the shear stress distribution on the rear-facing window. So on the in-house grid, they seem to be more symmetrical versus the committee grid. Well, the committee grid is definitely more resolved. So let's treat it as a benchmark. And the in-house grid is a bit coarser in space. So you can sort of think that it has more spatial error. And we can clearly see the differences in prediction results just by the change in mesh setup. I don't know if people sitting at the back rows can see the shear stress distribution on the mirror, but you can see they're actually different. On the committee grid, the reattachment line seems to be at the center of the mirror, whereas on my mesh, it's not. It's more skewed towards the chassis. This is quite interesting because the mirror is just a bluff body that sticks out of the A pillar. But I suppose if things start to change in front of the car, so around the stagnation pressure, that changes the flow separation that's going, sort of on either side of the engine cover, and that can modify the upstream condition of the mirror, and that changes the local flow features on the mirror as well. So this is everything about my presentation. We've gone through the predictions of case 2A, 2B using two meshes, and the case 2B, the prediction results of the two meshes in case 2B are quite consistent, so I guess that's good. But it's not so much in case 2A, and we've looked at why. The time energy fields on the cars fairly consistent, with the only exception of some local 3D effects on the rear-facing window, and then we sort of examine a bit further in detail of the local flow features around the front wheel, downwash, and the wake of the mirror. Thank you very much. That's everything.